on this episode of The Honest Mechanic.
That helps out someone that may be in that, do I sign a note for a $35,000 car versus fix my now valued at $10,000 or $12,000 car and just fix it and keep driving it. And there comes always that factor, do I want to keep sitting in this same seat, or would it feel good to sit in a new seat?
Right. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And a lot of times people really do just want to, unless you're just very financially responsible, most people do just want to sit in a new seat.
In most cases.
Me, I'm a mechanic. I go to the junkyard and find a real nice seat to put in it. That's because I'm cheap. I can't help it. Yeah, we throw back on this show all the time.
That's all the time. That's awesome.
You can show your age because you know.
It don't matter.
We go all the way back to horse and buggy into cars over here.
That's tight.
All right, so let's be ready to bring in the intro.
Check it out. You're listening to The Honest Mechanic with our featured mechanic, Todd Kemp.
Welcome to another episode of The Honest Mechanic, where we give our honest opinion about cars, lifestyle, and everything else.
Everything in between.
Right. I'm Tanya Davis with the Honest Mechanic expert, Todd Kemp.
Yo.
Car expert, Dave Mitchell.
What's up?
And we have a special guest here, Robert Johnson.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
And he's going to help us come up with some wise decisions on when to give up that car. From an insurance perspective, while Todd gives his honest mechanic perspective, because I understand with cars, it's almost like a family member. You want to keep it, just like, your pet, or anything else, because a lot of times cars been through the fire with us, So it's like, when do we let it go? But just a little information about Robert Johnson. He is American Family Insurance agent. He's owned and operated this company for 20 years.
20 years this year.
20 years.
Wow.
And he's also licensed in the property, casualty, life, and health insurance in the states of Illinois and Indiana.
Yes.
So welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you. Glad
and
to be
now,
here.
Welcome.
Nice. Glad to be here.
And now that we've done the formal way, I wanted to really introduce you as Robert Babyface Johnson.
You went there.
We had to go there. We had to do that.
Some history behind that name.
Right.
But,
Backstory now. Backstory.
You did That's when
Indiana.
I had hair, Being from Indiana, and I looked like him, so I got the nickname Rob Babyface Johnson. So
your old style gangster name.
Yeah.
Right,
oh,
not
Bumpy
Al Capone,
Johnson.
right?
Anytime you say three names, he's important.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
That's right. And maybe later in the show, we'll see if there was any songs that you loved or
Oh,
hated.
there you go.
Were you the biggest fan?
Right.
Have you ever met Babyface? But let's start. Talk. Today's topic, we're going to talk about cars and when do they become junk cars, Todd? I mean,
well, I guess that's a hard question to answer because, like Tanya said, cars are a part of your life, part of your lifestyle. They've been everywhere you've been, and your memories are countless in your car. That day you burned the seat with your first cigarette, and because you didn't know that you're supposed to drop the ash out the window or whatever. that first time you met your girlfriend and you reached over and you had enough room to actually, give her a hug in the car, or your memories of picking up your mom and dad and dropping them off at church or whatever. Your car is you. Your car is essentially an extension of you at every part of the way. And depending on how many miles, we can, in the 80s, cars that got 100,000 miles were considered old. Now, if you've got 200, 300,000 miles, the car is being considered as just, it's still able to be repaired.
Yep.
So there's a shift in what's considered as a car's planned obsolescence. And I use that word because most cars do have planned obsolescence. They know how many times you can flip your window switch before it fails. They know how many times you can put the car in drive before a part in the steering column fails. What they cannot test for is how well you're going to take care of the car in the life of the car. And that goes to how you take care of the seats, how you take care of the dashboard, how you take care of the paint, how you take care of the engine, how you take care of the driveline, even your tires, and all of that goes together on when you're tired of taking care of a car. And when you look at the end life of a car, most used cars, and we've talked about this before, why does a used car become a used car? Used cars become used cars for various reasons. Let's just recap: repossession, if it that happens, unfortunately. Lifestyle changes. You started out with a 2-door because you were single. You had your typical hierarchy for a Ford brand lover. You start out with the V6 Mustang, and because they're inexpensive, or Escort or something.
Hyundai Accent. No, I'm just kidding.
Then you travel your way up. You get your first kid. You got 4 doors. And, you got to get 4 doors because your girlfriend or wife says, hey, we need a bigger car. Then as you get more kids or they get older and you start doing soccer practice, you need an SUV.
Oh, boy.
And then if you keep going, you end up with a Suburban or a Expedition or something of that sort. So it's just a matter of purpose, need, and lifestyle. So, but different types of cars last different amounts of time. And we just kind of go along with when you're tired is when you typically get rid of a car. Accidents are another reason cars become used cars. It had an accident, they fixed it. Sometimes they're considered as rebuilt. Sometimes they're just accident cars and they've been resold as repaired. You won't typically know because you don't know what to look for. But all of those reasons are why you get a used car. Very seldom does somebody just say, I don't like this car anymore, I'm going to go buy a new one, even though it's a perfectly good car. Not typical of human psyche for a purchase so large. So those are the reasons why we tend to exit a vehicle, but we'll definitely throughout the show go through different life scenarios as to what we did and why we got rid of something, or when a car becomes a POS. All right, go ahead and take over, Dave.
So, man, in talking about getting rid of a car and trying to when to know, like, okay, this is a money pit now. And it's just like you said, when lifestyle change is one thing, or accident or things like that. Then after a while, it's like, you know what, I'm spending way too much just to get it normal and things like that. But each person's lifestyle kind of dictates that, and there's no one size fits all kind of thing, just like you said earlier. But yeah, man, we got Mr. Babyface in the building, and so yeah, man, tell them who you are and what you've seen in the insurance industry and things like that.
Yeah, I'm been around as an agent, American Family Insurance, for 20 years now. Have an office that's on the north side, Belmont, Cicero area, 3050 North Cicero, and just being in the industry, just seeing a lot of things when it comes to vehicles, especially those vehicles that have been in accidents. What we have a thing as agents, we have, when the client their vehicle gets a little bit older, we normally have like a 10, 11 year, 12 year kind of rule. When that vehicle gets a little bit older, we always recommend that they change the coverages on that vehicle from full coverage down to liability. But it does depend on the vehicle. Some SUVs and some luxury vehicles, they hold their value a little bit longer. So it may still be worth keeping full coverage on those vehicles, even though it's, 10 years old. Wow. But normally if you have a standard vehicle and it's not luxury type vehicle or full size SUV, that'll still hold their value. Why continue to pay high insurance costs? And we just recommend changing those coverages down to liability.
Now, going into that is a question from the mechanical aspect. As a mechanic, we look at, and this is kind of from what my granddaddy kind of instilled in me, and a couple situations I had where I had to decide either to fix a car or get rid of it. And what he kind of told me was, okay, your car needs an engine. That engine will cost, from a mechanic's aspect, that engine may cost you $1,000 to buy the engine. It's going to cost you 2 days to put it in. If you put this engine in this older car, if that car gets hit tomorrow, will you recoup the cost of the car and the cost of this engine that you put in? So I guess the question is, if we have an older car and we're deciding, do we want to put money into this older car, what does the insurance industry use as a standard? And let's just, so that I'm not vague, let's go 2010 Toyota Camry with 200,000 miles on it. Let's say the transmission goes out. The dealer tells the customer the transmission is $3,500 to $4,500 to repair. They're going to give them a 1-year warranty. So now you've got another, and then you've got $1,000 to $1,500 in dealer labor. So now we're at $5,000.
Yeah.
On that car, if that car got that transmission put in, drove out the dealership, and bam, a semi truck totals it. Was it worth them putting that transmission in that vehicle?
That's a good question. The claims department, they're going to look at a lot of different components when they're trying to determine the actual cash value of that vehicle. So one, they're going to look at the mileage. They're going to look at two, overall condition of the vehicle. And then, of course, the interior, they like to look at the wear and tear. If a client smokes, normally that's going to decrease the value of that vehicle versus a non-smoker. But in your question, where any type of, let's say, aftermarket equipment or rebuilt or new trans or engine, if something like that where the customer has receipts that they can submit to the claims department, they will consider that into determining what the value of that car is based on any additional aftermarket equipment you put on the vehicle, or in that case, rebuilt or new transmission or engine. They'll consider that value.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that helps out someone that may be in that, do I sign a note for a $35,000 car versus fix my now valued at $10,000 or $12,000 car and just fix it and keep driving it. And there comes always that factor: do I want to keep sitting in this same seat, or would it feel good to sit in a new seat?
That's what it comes down to.
And a lot of times people really do just want to, unless you're just very financially responsible, most people do just want to sit in a new seat.
In most cases.
Me, I'm a mechanic. I go to the junkyard and find a real nice seat to put in it. That's because I'm cheap. I can't help it. It's like, oh man, I need a new seat. Junkyard.
You mentioned the putting in an engine, and my dad has done that before. Like, I bought a new engine, and I could never understand, like, dude, why would you buy another engine or whatever? And it was a used engine to put in another car, bro. Just go get another car. But I mean, it's the different generation, and it's a different, he worked on cars or whatever back in the day, nowhere near your level of mechanicness.
It's basic. Like, I grew up with my granddad. He had an old tow truck, and he'd go get old junk cars, and sometime he'd get a junk car and take the motor out of that and put it in another car. But in the 70s, 80s, like I say, 100,000 miles on a car was not typical.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. Typical engine may last 80,000, 70,000 miles. If you really, let's go with the logo and the cliches of the time. Man, I turned over that car twice. It's like you turned over the car twice.
Wow.
Like, now
they're like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about?
Like, well, years ago they only had 100,000 mile odometer. Well, they had a 99,999 mile odometer.
Right.
And nowadays we've got 999,000, almost million mile odometers.
Yeah.
So it to turn over a car is essentially not going to happen anymore.
Right.
It technically it has. So I'm clear there are million mile cars out there, but just for normal status, we're not going to turn over an odometer anymore. So ultimately, if you had a 78 Monte Carlo or something like that, the body may still be in great condition. It's literally, you can have a motor out of the car in 2 hours. If you're good, you can have it out in 30 minutes. Just it depends on how good you are and how many guys you got.
Yeah.
A Chevy pickup truck, you definitely can have a motor out in 30 minutes. You're going to jump inside both, or you're going to sit on both fenders and take it apart.
Wow.
You literally sit inside the hood of the car and take it apart. Just the nature of the beast, just what you do. I mean, pickup trucks typically, because they're heavier and they require more effort, those motors are going to go out more often. So you're going to replace a pickup truck motor maybe 2 times in its life. You may replace a pickup truck transmission up to 4 times in its life, depending on how hard you work that truck. But the 78 Cadillac Brougham, you might put one engine in it for the life of it, because it didn't get driven as much, unless it was a cab or something. Oh my gosh, let's see, what was it, the 90s, the cabs, the police interceptor cab that everybody was driving?
Yes.
Try to find a motor for one of those. There are a bunch of cars out there, but the motor is sky high because so many of them have to be replaced for whatever reason.
That's true. No.
And there were so many cars made just like it that use the same motor, so it's scarce to get. And then that's why they were stealing them, to get the motor. But to replace a motor, and like you say, Dave, is not uncommon. It's not something that a mechanic would bat his eye at if he needed to do it. It's like, motor, buy a new car. No, I'm going to get a motor.
Wow.
And once Chevy trucks, the 90 through 99 Chevy trucks had a big problem with needing motors often, and not because of the mileage, just because people beat the dog snot out of them, and they just wore out. You see more of them like a rock. That was my favorite commercial when I was a kid. I used to run down the street singing that while I was skipping. I'm a hillbilly at heart. I love it. Oh man. You get the Chevy truck and just sit on the tailgate, swing your leg, and eat a salami sandwich with your granddad.
That dude pulled out an acoustic guitar.
Right.
Wow, Todd, the honest musician.
But
skills, bro.
Trucks. You're gonna keep a truck around. You might even keep a truck around for generations because of the memories that it creates. You might keep, certain other station wagons around for generations because of the memories they make.
Wow.
The little small cars, they were built to be less expensive, so they don't have as good a quality of parts. So you tend to see those thrown away more often.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you saw a Ford Escort pull up to you at a light?
Oh, man.
But during the 90s, who didn't have an Escort?
Bro.
I mean, it was like any high school you go past, it was Escorts everywhere.
Yep.
That's right.
5-star rims on it. I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
My first car.
Cars that have mostly disappeared. Intrepids. I mean, I had an Intrepid and loved it. It was a huge car. Ran great, rode
It
good.
was
but
long, man.
yeah, but they didn't make the test of time, and
He did.
The Intrepid.
yeah. So
Wow.
Let's talk about
bring
some of
back
those some of those cars, like let's say the Hyundai Accents and the Ford Escorts.
disappeared.
They just disappeared.
They
but
did the dinosaur extinction level event. They just
and they went away. Right.
Moment of silence.
the Accent was a great little inexpensive car, but once you got done with, how much money were you really going to put
Right.
into a car that cost $11,000 new 10 years later that really was only worth about $4,000,
Yep.
and then you're going to put money into it
Yeah.
at $100 an hour or $65 an hour to
No
a
way.
standard shop?
It's
You're
a
not
big fat
going to do
no.
that. You
Goodbye,
have
Accent.
to. Yeah, it's. See you later. It goes away on a tow truck, and nobody ever sees it again.
And I made the mistake. My transmission went out. This was my first car, people. So, but the transmission went out, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to buy another car because then there's a car payment. So let me pay $1,000 for this used transmission, and I'm trying to cut corners.
That is a car payment. You just paying it all at once.
Right.
And so the car was never the same.
Car payment.
It was never the same, and it would make this weird, it would make this weird, noise, and I'm like, okay, this car is no good. I wasted $1,000. I still have to trade it off for another car because it's not working right, even after I put a new used transmission in there. So my question is, are there different classes of cars where you can keep for a long time and you can replace parts like transmissions and they'll still work versus, those cheaper cars where, you start replacing parts, it's no good.
And that's exactly it. It's all the value of the car.
Right.
I mean, when you go look at a car, you got the Accents and the Kia. You've got mostly, I'll just break it down into how car lots are set up. You've got starter cars, $10,000, $12,000, roll down windows, manual transmission. That's for the person who's starting out, just graduated from high school or in high school, parents looking to buy them a car, not trying to spend a lot of money. Boom, because if they get a bigger, more expensive car, their insurance is higher.
Ding, ding, ding.
So you've got to consider that.
Babyface comes in.
Yeah. And he's with American Family Insurance. We're gonna kick it to him and ask him, what's the quote for a 16-year-old male?
Man. Out the roof.
Yeah.
Out the roof. And a lot of parents, they'll call the insurance agent. Yeah, I need a quote on a car. And so they'll try to hide the fact that they don't have a teenager driving. Like, oh, this is just for me. This is just for me. I'm just
He's
thinking
young
about
at
getting,
heart.
I'm getting another car. So who's that car for? Who's going to be the driver? Oh, well, yeah, I need an extra car. But because the insurance cost is so high for teenagers.
Now let's just kick that. Let's take that one
They
step
don't want to tell
further.
you the truth.
Let's take that one step further. As an insurance agent, when you have a 16-year-old or 18-year-old in your household, and say, for instance, you've worked your whole life, you got your Mercedes, and you've got this new licensed driver in your house. What is the best way for them to make sure that their car is covered no matter, because we all have that story. I never did it because I would have been drawn and quartered. But yeah, I used to take my dad's car in the middle of the night and go to my girlfriend's house, and I would push it down in the driveway and then jump in and take off. And, you know, we all have heard that story or been a part of that situation. And that day that something happens.
Yeah.
I mean, and then nobody wants to hear their insurance agent go, "You're not covered for that." So how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you have a licensed youthful driver in your household, a teenager, and they have a license, and in most cases with the reputable companies, the larger insurance companies, our policies are going to be a little bit different than the smaller substandard companies. So in a case like that, where if I have a youthful driver in my house and he drives my vehicle and gets into an accident, one, there's going to be coverage if I give him permissive use. There's going to be coverage. So if he say, "Hey, Dad, I need to use your vehicle to run to the store," got into an accident, there's going to be coverage. In a case where he's in the household, and if that vehicle was not given to him by permissive use and he gets into an accident, then you come across a coverage question where the claims department, they're going to kind of investigate a little bit more, like, well, how did he obtain the keys? What was his use? In
now,
most cases,
will they come after them will they make the parent decide either you're not going to be insured or we're going to have to take this if you don't make this a criminal issue?
In most cases that I've seen, let's say they have this young driver in the house and he's 16, 17 years old, and they know the cost is expensive, but they didn't get a chance to call their agent and to put that driver on the policy as a driver. Okay, this kid is driving, he gets into an accident. He wasn't on the policy yet, but he's still in the household. He's still a licensed driver. Most cases, he'll be covered.
Okay.
Then you're going to be required to put him on the policy as an additional driver or an occasional driver in that case, and then that's where you're going to see the rates go up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another tidbit that I'm familiar with, and just to let some of the, if you've got multiple cars, what's a way for a person to save money? I mean, I have multiple cars and I have them in different garages. You know, if it's one that I can go drive, if I'm not going to drive it for a period of time, say a summer car, or like a special use car.
Right.
Do you can you explain how they can suspend it, put limited coverage on it, so on and so forth? So
in a case where let's say you have a Corvette or summer type vehicle where you know you're not going to be driving during the winter time, you could put comprehensive coverage only on that vehicle, and that's going to cover it while it's in the garage. So in the event if it's stolen, if it's vandalized, or even if the garage catches on fire, with the comprehensive coverage on it, that's going to cover it while it's in that garage. So you'll take all the other coverages off, as you mentioned, suspend the other coverages to save costs. When you're able to drive it and you know that you're going to be driving again, you call your insurance agent, "Hey, I need to put the coverages back on this vehicle I'm going to be driving." You can do that whenever you want to.
Okay. Wow.
Anytime you want to suspend coverages, you don't, let's say if you have a 6-month policy or annual policy, you're never locked in to keeping the coverages during that term. You can take, add, remove, add back coverages anytime you want.
And I'm just trying to, we got an insurance agent in the house. We got to make this work for everybody.
Question number 465.
So, right. Look at him, see.
So in the event of this garage fire,
we talk about bundles and groups and things of that nature. What's the personal property and vehicles? When people's car get broke, like I read an article the other day, Teslas, they're breaking the small window in the Tesla to the P series to reach in, let the back seat down, and see if there are any articles that they want to steal.
Property, yeah.
And then if there is something in the trunk, they'll actually break the whole window. You got $100,000 car that's special. I would die if I saw my window busted on a Tesla. But now, how do you umbrella your personal property that's in the car?
Great question.
That, and group all those insurances together to make sure that your laptop gets stolen. Are you covered under your renters, even though it was in your car?
Right. Most policies have a endorsement where it's going to cover only up to a certain amount of personal property that's in your vehicle. So you do have cases where, let's say, someone works from home and they didn't take their laptop out of their vehicle or left it in their vehicle or something like that. Or if they commute or something, they parked the vehicle at the train and left it, came back, the vehicle was vandalized, their personal property, clothing, computers were stolen out. Most policies only gonna cover up to a certain limit amount of personal property. You have to then report it under your either renter's insurance, condo insurance, or homeowner's insurance to cover the personal property that was in your vehicle. If it was taken out of there. So your auto policy is only going to give you a certain threshold to cover. In most cases, $200, maybe $300. If that personal property exceeded that amount, then you're going to have to file a separate claim, a homeowner claim, to cover your personal property.
Now, is there you got a lot of people with CCW now, and you can't take it into certain locations? Say, for instance, is there a special a type of endorsement that you would need if you have weapons or something?
To be covered under the auto policy, that's still going to be covered under the homeowner. When it comes to weapons, that's going to be covered under the homeowner's policy. So if it was stolen out of your vehicle, the auto policy in most cases wouldn't cover something like weapons. That would have to be covered under the homeowner's policy or condo or renters, and you have to report that separate claim.
Okay.
Yeah, to have that covered. But yeah, good question. So we've seen that in cases where we see a lot of clothing, leather coats, leather jackets, and people want to claim like, oh man, I had this $5,000 fur. I just didn't get a chance to take it to the cleaners, and it was in my car. Yeah. So yeah. You got to make sure that it was covered under your homeowners, to make sure.
They took my members only jacket.
Yeah, man. I got this classic Michael Jackson jacket.
With the zippers.
Yeah,
the one I'm
zippers.
talking about with the zippers. Got it from Marshall Fields.
Yeah, bro. Report your homeowner's claim. Yeah, separate claim.
All right. This is. I mean, we're a show trying to make sure that either you ask us the questions or we come up with the questions to ask that may suit you. Yeah. Sometimes you get answers to questions that you never even thought to ask.
Yeah.
And sometimes we all the time need you guys to ask us questions. So that's why we're opening up our social media platform. We've got Facebook. Do we have Tanya will go over those particular addresses?
And Dave, you can help me because
we're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Yeah, but Facebook. You can find us at THM Podcast. Is that it? Instagram, The Honest Mechanic, and then Twitter at Honest MECH.
Yep.
And then you can subscribe. We're also on YouTube. You can search The Honest Mechanic Podcast and subscribe to our channel. And we're on a host of podcast stations, but most specifically, we're on iTunes and Spotify. So please subscribe to us on iTunes. And we also have a way that you can, like if you're on Facebook, if you have any questions, just send us a message and we'll have it on our next show, or Todd can answer it on the spot.
That works. Keeps me busy.
Right.
I don't know if my grammar isn't proper, I'm sorry.
That's the honest mechanic. That's it. The Honest Mechanic channel at Libsyn.com. Or .libsyn.com.
Yeah, that's our RSS feed, and it also has all the links to where all the other channels are. And then, Dave, you just hooked this up on Anchor as well, right?
Yeah, shout out to Anchor, Anchor.fm. Shout out to Anchor. We're on Anchor as well. Anchor is a great free podcasting app that I've used in Renewed Mind, and so we're there as well. So shout out to Anchor.
That's right. And again, you're listening to The Honest Mechanic. We're here with Robert Johnson from American Family Insurance, and I'm telling you, he's loading us with knowledge just about.
I'll take
and I'll insure
it as soon as I get home from work. That was one of my favorites. So yeah.
Okay.
I think all women like that. So, pay your rent. Yeah, I like that, brother.
Oh my God.
Is that why you got into insurance? I'm like, pay your rent and I'll insure your apartment.
Right. Hey guys, we got something coming up that's like super exciting for a lot of people. We've got the Chicago Auto Show. Don't know what's going to be debuted. Usually most manufacturers find each show to find that one particular model that they want to put out there. And everybody, it puts everybody in a buying frenzy. And people go and say, yeah, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that. From the insurance side, we can all like a lot of cars, but they have different insurance rates. So what's the best way to say, hey,
he's rolling up his sleeves, guys.
I mean, because right now I'm like, I'm at that midlife crisis age, and I got that itch to buy something that normally you go, why do you need that?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. So the other day I'm reading as usual, and I run across the Lexus GS F with the supercharger. So
another initial behind it. I thought it was GS. They got an F now.
Yeah, when you F Sport, and then they added the supercharger. So when you get into these, I guess that would be up in the category of semi-exotic. But when you go to an auto show and you sit in these cars and the leather wraps around you and you smell the dead cowhide that has been perfectly tanned, and they've got the piping and the stitching and options that you look at that sticker on the side of the window and go, why do I need that? How do you call your insurance agent and say, because you don't have a VIN number, you don't have all the options that you're going to get before, as an educated buyer, how do you go to go about saying, hey, I'm interested in a 2020 Ford Ranger, and I need a ballpark of what the insurance will be on this particular vehicle?
Yeah, great question. I always, as an agent, recommend my clients when they're car shopping to contact me first to get a quote. And because you want to kind of get an idea not only what the car payment is going to be, but you want to factor in what the insurance payment is going to be. And normally on a newer vehicle, that insurance is going to be a little bit higher. Now, normally what I've seen with some of the newer vehicles now, because they have more safety features, the insurance industry are giving more discounts to those vehicles that have more safety features. So you see that a lot with the newer vehicles, especially with the
pedestrian
collision. Yeah, and then you have multiple airbags where you have front and side on the pillars, and so you have the additional airbags there. So the insurance industry are giving additional discounts for those vehicles. But I do always recommend my clients to say, hey, call me. Let me give you a quote first, because even if we don't have the VIN number, we can still give you a ballpark idea kind of what that insurance cost would be on it.
Okay, what's your contact information? Let's throw that
clients,
out there
if you ever need some quotes, you can contact me directly at my office, 773-427-5760. My email address is rjohns11@amfam.com. Or you can contact me directly through my website. That's www.robjohnsonagencyinc.com, and you can request a quote via my website as well, or call the office directly, or shoot me an email.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. You reached the conclusion of part 1 of today's episode called Is It Cheaper to Keep Her? Getting insight from an insurance standpoint with our guest, Rob Johnson of American Family Insurance. Be sure to check out part 2. We've got more for you. In the meanwhile, stay connected with us online. On Facebook, you can find The Honest Mechanic page. Search THM Podcast. On Instagram, it's _The Honest Mechanic. And on Twitter, it's The Honest Mech, MECH. Visit The Honest Mechanic podcast page, which holds the RSS feeds and all the links to our social platforms at thehonestmechanicchannel.libsyn.com. That's thehonestmechanicchannel.libsyn.com. Hey, just wanted to say thank you again for listening to our podcast and checking out the content, engaging with us online. We really appreciate you. Until next time, this is Dave from The Honest Mechanic, encouraging you to keep it honest.